Here we are at our monthly session, and this is a time for us. I've created a little bit of a space or container, if you will, for us to check out of life's busyness for just a few minutes and then check in with ourselves, right? Like mind, body, perhaps check in with each other and learn some new tips and tools in the space of holistic well-being, this idea of taking care of the whole person. And then we meditate for a few minutes together. Again, I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining live and catching it on demand if you're catching it that way. So today's topic is all about micro self-care. And I've personally come to understand a couple times now in my life the truth in a saying that I heard that if you don't make time for wellness, you may eventually be forced to make time for your illness. And I have experienced both states of being hyper attentive to my body and then also not, right? Like the opposite, kind of not taking care. And I've come to find that tending to my body has really made all the difference in the way I experience my life. And when my body feels supported and my mind feels steady, I find I function at my personal best. Now that may vary day to day, right? Like I could be really performing well at my best and really high. And some days my best may look a little different, right? But again, when I do not make time to invest in my well-being on a daily basis, inevitably stress and imbalance gradually set in. And I found that when they linger too long, both my physical health and my emotional state take a toll. And so, we know that self-care matters, right? Like all of us know that, but it doesn't make it any easier for us to practice, right? Modern life can make it feel like just one more thing we have to fit into an already full day. And even when we recognize the need, right, we may struggle to find the time, or we may feel guilty about prioritizing ourselves, right? That happens to some of us. Or we may just simply not know where to begin. And this is where I found myself about 12 years ago. I was working as a full-time investigator, which was a very stressful job, you might imagine. I was also had a family, I was a wife, I am a wife, and a mother to a young child at that time. And I found myself really burnt out with both work and home, and I really didn't like the way I felt kind of overall. And in response to that, I began developing what would now become what I call the Medha Way, which is this method of micro self-care. And it's based on the idea that sustainable well-being that can carry us through the stress of being human, which we all experience, right? If we live long enough, that well-being can be built through small, realistic acts of self-care that fit naturally into our busy lives. And most of the practices that I employ are informed by ancient as in Eastern wisdom traditions. So things like yoga, Ayurveda. I even dabble in Reiki and energy work that help me focus on, kind of mind, body, and spirit. Now, I will say, big fan of Western medicine myself, right? I believe it's saved my life a couple times. And so I meld these two philosophies together, right? Use Western medicine when I need, and it makes sense, but also this kind of Eastern approach has been integral in terms of incorporating and taking care of the whole person. And I'll say, and you may know this as well, that some of these very methods and practices, like meditation and breath work, they're being supported more and more by scientific research, right? Saying these things really do work. And so the micro self-care practice I employ is not about, again, following a rigid routine or having to set aside these hours of dedicated time, but rather again about finding some very practical opportunities to weave small amounts of care into our schedules and routines that already exist. And I'll share with you a little bit on how to do that. Because again, when those small acts are practiced consistently, I myself have noticed some very meaningful and noticeable changes over time. And I wanted to share this tidbit too. So there is a connection I found between the Medha Way and something called the Kaizen principle. I'm not sure if any have heard of this, but it is a Japanese philosophy all around continuous improvement. And it became widely known through its use at Toyota. And it was used very successfully there. And then they became known for their operational excellence. And at its core, Kaizen teaches that meaningful progress often comes through small, steady improvements, right? We may have these opportunities for kind of massive change that happens all at once, but really it's in those small, steady improvements. And I found that in my own experience as well to be very transformative, that those small, consistent actions that I was able to integrate over time, were so powerful. And so I was really intrigued to find this connection between the Medha Way and this Kaizen philosophy. So the Medha Way, it's all about making self-care a habit, because the patterns that we practice becomes the patterns that we return to. The brain is neuroplastic, which means it has this inherent ability to change and adapt through repetition that reinforces certain pathways that are associated with our thoughts and behaviors and responses. That's how we create new habits, right? Like that's how we learn new languages or learn to play an instrument, is because we're repeating those patterns. It's becoming a habit, and then we're conditioning the behavior. This is also the way we break habits, right? So whether rooted in stress or unhealthy habits, or whether rooted in self-care and self-love and self-compassion, the patterns that we repeat over time become deeply ingrained. And the good news, again, is that patterns can change, right? So through awareness, intention, and repetition, we can begin to reinforce new ways of responding and creating those new neural pathways. For sustainable well-being, I've found that we want to intentionally cultivate patterns that become habits that support greater well-being. And we can do that effectively a little bit at a time. And with what I practice with the Medha Way, it's not about everything being perfect. There is no perfect routine. It's simply about making well-being a habit a little bit at a time. And when I talk about the Medha Way, I incorporate two kind of components of holistic self-care. One focuses on the body, and I call it BitYoga. The other focuses on the mind, and I refer to it as daily MMs. So when I use the term BitYoga, it's to describe short, intentional moments of movement and posture awareness or alignment. It doesn't have to be yoga, right? Exercise can play into that bucket as well. And we're weaving that intentional movement throughout the day. So BitYoga might include a minute or a couple, right? Or several, where you may find yourself, seated in your chair and you're going to roll your shoulders, right? You may have observed that you were slouching, taking a minute to give the shoulders some relief, right? We could also stretch maybe a couple times while the coffee's brewing or before a meeting starts. I often do that. I find when I'm transitioning maybe from a task to a meeting or a task to another task, that I might have a minute or two, take the opportunity to just stretch out the body a little bit. Might take the stairs or a quick walk around the block, right? So we're only talking a few minutes. I might also practice a short yoga routine, like just a quick arms up, fold forward while the microwave runs, right? Or even dancing to a favorite song while I'm doing the dishes or making dinner, right? We can do that while we're doing these kind of chores that involve movement. And every 1 minute of mindful movement can help release tension, support circulation, restore energy, and bring our attention back into the body, ground us back in the body, because we often may find we're kind of up here in the head, right? So BitYoga helps us to return to what we're doing with greater clarity and presence by just relieving some of the tension and the stress in our body. Daily MMs. The mind also needs opportunities to pause. And when I teach, I often spend more time on mindfulness because I believe the mind is the captain of the ship, and it needs to be studied often. And so daily MMs are mindful moments or brief practices that help interrupt the constant stream of tasks or worries or distractions. And they may include a variety of things in the space of breath work or meditation, maybe doing a little gratitude reflection, creative expression, etc. And so daily mindful moments might be a couple minutes of silence or meditation before you start your day, even just laying in bed, right? You wake up, before you start moving through that day, just a couple minutes of silence. We can take one slow breath or two, again, before engaging in a new task, again, like sending an email, often helpful if you're a little fired up to pause before drafting that email. Waiting in line. I often use waiting as an opportunity to instead ruminate in my mind, to breathe, right? So waiting in line at the grocery store or waiting in line to pick your kid up at school, right? Any opportunity that we're waiting. We can also do conscious breathing while doing any mundane chore, right? A mundane chore is something you don't have to think about, right? You don't have to use the mind very much. Laundry is one for me, dishes is another. And so again, while doing that chore, I can incorporate breathing into that and weave that a bit of reset that way. And then gratitude is another big one. So these are just examples. There's lots of different ways and things that may feel good for you to incorporate. So what these do is help us to settle the mind, just again for a few moments, give us a break from the constant activity, allow us also to function with greater clarity and presence. With everything we do. And so when it comes to creating your own practice, so micro self-care, very personal, right? The most effective practices are the ones that feel realistic, acceptable, and supportive for you. And that looks different for each of us. And it's why my method of teaching is to share a variety of tools and techniques, just kind of throw them all out there. We try it on for size. And then you take what resonates and what feels good to you, you add it to what I call our personal well-being or wellness toolkit, so that you can pull those out, when you have a couple minutes. And then what doesn't feel good to you, just leave it, right? Like if it doesn't feel good, you don't have to force yourself to make a certain technique work. I promise you'll find one that feels good for you. And then from there, we create our own daily rituals using our existing routine, looking for those opportunities to weave a couple minutes of this in here, a couple minutes of that in there. And as far as resources, so there's lots of free resources out there for guided practices, right? Or exercises. You can find a technique you like. YouTube is a great, great resource. I know some on here use YouTube for all sorts of things. I also use another app called Insight Timer. And this is a meditation mindfulness app. Lots of free guided resources in that as well. And then to help others build and maintain their own micro practice, I created a handout that kind of walks through this Medha Way principle, right? These kind of general concepts. And then I also created a daily self-care tracker. I created it out of my own need. I'm a Virgo, right? I love, making lists or checking things off or counting, productivity. And so I've had different versions of this over the years, and it's helped me notice patterns and track the practices that support me and really help me stay connected to the small acts of care that make meaningful differences, even just in a few weeks. And so you can get that handout and that tracker on the Medha Way Learning Studio, which you can get to on the Medha Way website. And you can also, you've probably also seen that if you're on the Meta email list, that tracker come out. So I invite you to maybe use that as a tool if you're interested in developing a micro self-care practice. You can edit, you make it your own. Again, no perfection there. You put in the practices that work for you. And through that Medha Way is how well-being became a habit for me and how it can become a habit for others too, through those gradual moments of intentional self-care. So again, I encourage you with one breath and one stretch or one pause to begin to make well-being a habit, just bit by bit. So I'll stop there. And if you're all ready, let's enjoy a few minutes of meditation here together. Allow you to settle in here. Looks like everybody's already got their cameras off, microphone muted. Go ahead and settle into your meditation posture, finding a nice yet relaxed position for your body. Bring your awareness to your breath. Notice the rhythm of the natural inflow and outflow. We're not trying to force or control the breath in any way. We're just observing it as it moves in and it moves out. And as our body begins to settle, sometimes the mind might become a little more active. And so let's give ourselves the permission to let everything go for just the next few minutes. You've got nowhere to go, nothing to do, but just be here for the next few minutes. Let's do just a few rounds of some deeper breathing. When we deepen that breath, we allow the body and the mind to settle down just a little bit more. And so we're going to take an inhale deep, and then we're going to hold it briefly, and then we're going to exhale fully. So let's take a deep inhale in, hold, exhale slowly. Another inhale in, hold, exhale. Inhale in, hold, exhale. One more time. Inhale in, hold, exhale fully. And then let your breathing return to normal. And now we'll move into our mantra meditation. This is a So-Hum meditation, and it's a simple but very powerful technique where we use the breath and the silent repetition of mantra, which is a word or a set of words to help quiet the mind and relax the body. Mantra translates to mean vehicle of the mind because it helps us to move beyond the mind's chatter and bring us to the peace of the present moment. So we'll breathe in, we'll silently repeat to ourselves the word so. We'll exhale out, silently repeat the word hum, and we'll do that over and over. When we lose our attention, which we surely will, we've noticed we've lost that repetition of the mantra, we'll just gently bring it back over and over. No judgment or expectations here. Thoughts and losing focus are part of it. It is not a failure. This is training of the mind. Okay, so let's bring our awareness back to our breath. And now take a slow, deep breath through your nose. Think the word so. And then as you slowly exhale through your nose, silently repeat the word hum. So, hum. So, hum. Continue to allow your breath to flow easily, silently repeating so, hum, with each inflow and outflow of your breath. And again, whenever you notice that your attention has drifted to other thoughts in your mind or sounds you may hear in your environment or even sensations in your body, just gently return to your breath, silently repeating so, hum, and allow that gentle vibration to take you deeper into silence. I'll watch the time and let us know when to finish. Continue to sit with your eyes closed. You can release that mental repetition. Bring your awareness back into your body, back into the room you're in. Maybe take a deep breath here. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, preparing the body to re-engage. Before we finish, let's plant some intentions for living a happy, harmonious life. Planting some intentions in that silence we've just created is like planting some seeds in fertile soil. So here are 4 things we can intend for in our days. And if you'd like, you can silently repeat them to yourselves. Joyful, energetic body. Loving, compassionate heart. Reflective, alert mind. Lightness of being and laughter. Let those intentions go work their magic. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Okay, my friends, I hope that was comfortable. Y'all maybe felt a little settling down. I know I did. Encourage you again to explore what micro self-care might look like for you. Use the free Meta resources, use other resources you can get your hands on. Let's make some magic. Okay, thanks for being here or watching the replay. Be well.